Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Cybersecurity Recruiter podcast. Today, I'm joined by my good friend Elena Agar. How you doing?
Good to be here.
Yeah, likewise. Me and Elena were just chatting off air. It's a Friday. It sounds like you've got a very purposeful day ahead of you, and I've got a bit of a chilled out day. So we're both in a good mood, aren't we?
Sure thing.
So yeah, Elena, I'm just going to do you a bit of a intro for the listeners. Started off back in 2011 at Saudi Arabia Cultural Commission. You were then an international recruiter at George Mason University. You then went on to be involved with the management of careers and the relations and various aspects of how that worked at Manchester Middle East Centre, which was a university. You were then a class host at New Campus. You then went on to be a co-founder at Besson. You currently are the founder of Bloom Youth, which is a non-profit organization platform. You are also a podcast host, which you've currently done for 3.5 years. So you've been doing it a lot longer than me. And you are also a personal trainer, and you are also a talent acquisition and development manager at Horizon Industries. Wow, you're a busy woman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Do you know what, Elena? I'm looking forward to this one because you strike me as the sort. I know we spent a bit of time off air and we've never hung out in person. It's always been virtually, but you strike me as the sort of person that you're being like the best version of yourself. I can imagine you're having a positive impact on people that you spend time with. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to getting that energy across to the listeners. So thanks for joining us. And I know I've done you an intro there. I never think I can do it as well as you. So I'll start where I always start, which is who are you and what have you been up to?
You're very kind for saying all those things. I appreciate that. I'm my own worst critic. I'll start with that. I think you've covered it pretty nicely, but if I were to just summarize all of that, I've really started my career in higher education space. I've done this in different organizations, institutions in the US. I got to travel globally to do this kind of work, interact with students and parents and just individuals, and really being immersed into different cultures, which I'm not realizing then would then aid me very much into the work that I do today with just humans. And after that, it got a little bit slow for me. And so I was like, I really need a change. So I decided to shift towards corporate learning. And so I've transitioned my career to becoming a talent development professional. And it just felt like a nice, natural transition. And I really have found myself in this field. I really enjoy all aspects of talent management, from talent acquisitions to young talent pipelines, to working with universities and different organizations, helping close that gap between studies or what if you didn't go to university, right? Like, how can you still reach your potential and have that career? Along the way, I've also recognized the importance of physical fitness in everything that we do. So I'm really big on just not only helping people create careers where they can feel that purpose, maybe not 100% of the time, but 85% of the time is what I aim for. But also don't neglect your well-being, because that's a big part of making sure you are on track with that purpose and that career fulfillment. That's in a nutshell myself. I have a creative piece to me. So I write, I contribute to various publications, and of course I host a podcast.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lena. Yeah, and definitely, because whether you're a recruiter, cloud security engineer, a pen tester, I think it all starts with you. It starts with your fitness, your mindset, your well-being, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. I listened to a lot of recruitment podcasts, should I say, and one particular chap I was listening to recently was talking about how everything starts with your fitness and your mindset. And
Yeah.
on that note, we don't normally go this route, but I'd like to. So on the fitness side of things, for people listening out there want to get started and get cracking with it, any tips or advice, or for people that used to do it but have stopped, and maybe you could talk about some of the benefits as well to motivate people to get started.
Yeah. So one thing I always like to start off with is there's no one size fits all. So whenever you see the magic formulas, the magic pills out there, it's just a marketing trick.
Yeah.
Somebody's trying to sell you something. So always think of what's the agenda of the person posting this or talking about this. They
Yeah.
probably have money behind it. So that's to say that. So the beautiful part of it is that you can create your own magic pill that works for you. So I think number one is just recognizing what's right for you and your body, which is it's different from person to person. So I think a little bit of self-awareness goes a long way, not only in your career, but especially in fitness as well. Auditing your habits. I always say start with the three things. When we talk about well-being or fitness incorporating, three things: physical, emotional slash mental, and then social. So audit these three things. Physical, are you moving throughout your day? How does your body feel when you wake up? Like just thinking about that. Are you sleeping? Again, some people say you need 7, 8 hours of sleep. Some people say 5. Choose whatever works for you. How does your body feel when you wake up? So physical, are you getting those steps in, or just playing with your pet? I don't know, just interacting, anything where your body's moving, yoga, sport, whatever works for you. We're not talking about CrossFits or being a triathlon person. The other one is the mental emotional, because that's the one that hits us the most. The mental emotional piece is, how do you feel overall? Do you feel fulfilled in your life? Do you get easily triggered and angered? Understanding where all those things come from is essential as part of your physical wellness. And then its final part is the social. In the world, we're becoming more and more disconnected. We are spending less time in person with people. We're aging alone. Divorce rates are high. People are getting married later and later, or completely opting out of having a family and getting married, which is to each his own. But make sure that it's not impacting you on the negative way, because when you're alone, when you're, excluded from society, right, it's very hard to be happy and healthy. That's just a fact. We are a social creature. That goes back to our ancestors and so on. And I think we forget that. We forget these three basics. So that's just a little kind of setting the context. And then finally, just ask yourself, what kind of life you want to live. That's what it comes down to. It's not about body image, right? But it's just like, how can you age with quality? And there's a number of things that are out of your control. And sure, genetics play a role probably to an extent. And unless you have a specific longevity, people that are around you, it's probably going to catch up and so on. But do you want to age with quality and be at your top performers, or do you want to just deteriorate as the years go by? And so I think just starting there and just understanding why you're doing it. And it's not for body image again, but I want to be around for my kids. I want to be around for my grandkids. I want to be able to move and travel when I'm 50, 60, 70, and so on. And it's truly a choice. I work with people all the time that are well into their 70s. And there's a big difference between somebody who has been moving most of their life versus somebody who's been sedentary. And professionally, final thing I'll mention here is, professionally speaking, there has been a ton of studies that's been done that has proven that when you are carrying extra weight, or especially a lot of extra weight, if you're in that obesity frame, it does impact your creative thinking. It does impact your ability to think on your feet. It does impact your emotional regulations, and impacts a lot of things, because everything is tied to our gut and gut health. And there's a huge mind body connection. I can spend hours just on that. So I'm going to pause here.
There's so many little things there that you've mentioned that I'm just like, I need to ask you that, because it really does. And for everyone listening, for cybersecurity guys and girls listening, it really does. You mentioned it there. It ties into your ability to think, your behavior. If you're analyzing code, this really does tie in for technical people. And I think a lot of what you said there ties really nicely into the communication piece. You talked about if you're getting angry quickly, if things are not right mentally, that affects your ability to liaise with a team and move forward, and so on and so forth. Yeah, on that, when he talks about older, we see people in their 70s. I've not been on Instagram for years, but I used to see these pictures and it would show two people the same age, one that looked after themselves and one that didn't. And it was like, these two people are the same age and they looked like 10 years apart. It definitely affects it. Elena, if I'm listening there and I'm thinking, I'm going, yep, you're right, that is affecting me. I am, you know what, I'm getting annoyed at work. I'm getting angry. I'm a bit short with my colleagues. If that is where my mental state is now, and I'm wanting to improve it, any little kind of 2 or 3 tips, hints to do that?
Absolutely. So number one, audit those three pieces: physical, emotional, and social, and really get to the root cause. That's number one. Number two, choose just one or two things, one or two, maybe even starting with two, depending on kind of your level of ability to manage change, resilience, etc. And are you going from A to C, or are you going from A to Z in terms of making that change? So if you have somebody who's sedentary lifestyle, work on a computer, sitting all day, making a small change, such as even getting yourself a standing desk. alternating between sitting down, standing up. When you wake up in the morning, go outside, get some sunshine. A lot of studies has been done. Obviously, if you're in places that does not have sunshine right when you wake up, even artificial light can be beneficial. But just waking up your body in the morning first thing before you take your phone or get into work mode or put anything in your mouth or have your coffee, just take a moment, stretch your body, acknowledge how your body feels, go for a 5-minute walk, do 5 push-ups, do 5 sit-ups, whatever works for you, right? Depending on your what's available to you. So I think consistency and the power of small habits goes a long way, because what happens is that it's very difficult to stay disciplined if you're starting something new. So if you're starting something 5 minutes a day, so just 5 minutes a day, you're saying, you know what, I know I need to move a little bit more. So I'm going to devote 5 minutes in the morning. I'm going to stretch, or maybe I take a 5-minute walk. And maybe it sounds ridiculous to some people listening, like 5 minutes, what is it going to do? That 5 minutes, if you, as long as you do a diet, that will eventually get into 10 minutes and 15 minutes. And eventually it becomes a habit. And that is how you creating a new way of being. You're becoming this person who, when they wake up in the morning, they go and they exercise or they stretch and so on. That's just the basics, right? Just taking just one or two things you can work on. That's it. Maybe you want to drink more water. Maybe you want to spend more time with loved ones. All of that contributes to your overall health.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. And also as well, you mentioned there about, are you going from A to C or A to Z? And that ties in with, you said it before about 5 minutes ago, you said do something that's sustainable. I think it's really easy, whether we're talking about fitness or whether we're talking about where you're at in your cybersecurity career. It's so easy to look at people that are miles ahead and think, I'm not going to get there. But it's about doing something for you that's sustainable. You use the word habits. Habits are so powerful, aren't they? If you can
Mhm.
create good ones or bad ones, you can easily go off in a very positive or a very negative direction. But yeah.
Something that has really come to my attention over the last couple of years, that many people out there that are much better at this than I am say, is who do you need to become in order to be that person who is active, who is moving, who is successful, who is creative, and so on. And it's about, what does that person do? So we focus so much on just looking at just this next step in front of us, but it's just again, like I always say, move away from the body, because I think that's what discourages a lot of people, is that people are like, I'm not making progress. No, it's just like, who do you want to become? What are the habits of that person look like? And then it's about you, like your future self. It's not about the person on Instagram. That's just the most detrimental thing you can do to yourself, is to compare yourself to social media. It's all, half of it is fake, 99% of it. Don't fall for it. We all know it, but we still fall into this trap. It's just like looking at who you are today, who do you want to be, and what are the habits of that person, and then aim to become that person, because you have to change something. Nothing changes if nothing changes, right? So you have to change something, and that starts with you.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Lena. And as well, it's like we're working remote now, a lot of us. So we've lost the commute. A lot of us have created efficiencies in our work day from leveraging some form of AI or automation. And we've probably all got less time than ever. When you think about that, it's crazy. Like, just losing the commute. That was a big part of the day. Like, for people listening, we should, and I'm as guilty as ever sometimes, but we should be able to make some time, whether it's to meditate or to go for that walk or just to
Mhm.
sit and do nothing for a bit. But it's sometimes we need it reinforcing, don't we?
Yeah, it's, I don't believe in I don't have time. I think it's about making time for things that matter. And it's like people spend a lot of time on social media. I mean, just again, like audit your habits. Like, how much are you spending doing X, Y, and Z? And is it helping you become the person that you want to become? And
Mm,
I guarantee you, myself included, there's everybody who's listening to this, everybody in the world who is probably not utilizing at least an hour of their day as effectively as they should be, let
mm,
alone 5 minutes.
mm,
So you
mm,
trying to tell me you don't have 5 minutes? You need to reframe how you go about life. But also, I know, having been there, is that not everybody's ready for a change, and change comes when you're ready for it.
yeah.
You have to be ready to make a change, whether it's in your career, whether it's in your personal relationships, personal life, fitness, health. You have to be ready for it.
Definitely do, and I think it might have been Tony Robbins said it or something. But if you haven't got five, it doesn't matter how much money you're making, how well you're doing. If you haven't got 5 minutes, you haven't got anything. You've got to,
Yeah, keep it
you,
real with yourself. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And Elena, I talk about personal brand to the cybersecurity community a lot on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I think it's more of a long-term play, but I think it's a brilliant play. I use phrases like making your resume and your profile 3D. Did a post yesterday about how LinkedIn is essentially just like this piece of digital marketing collateral that you've got with you for the rest of your career. I like the way you're going about stuff with the pod and various other things you're doing. Can you tell us about your podcast? Can you tell us about personal branding and stuff like that, and how that could help the listeners, and how you've gone about getting your personal brand to where it is now?
Yeah, so I think important thing to, and something I've come again to learn. I'm always learning, and I think that it's healthy to be able to change your mind and just adjust to different things. But when I started my personal brand journey, not realizing I was starting it, I really was so focused on the, how do I say, like more of the media presence, right? And in my field, there's a level of importance of it, but it's not for everybody. And I think that's the misconception about personal branding is people think it needs to be, you need to have a podcast, you need to be in the media, you need to be the social media person, you need to do interviews and all that. That doesn't necessarily mean that. You have an audience. Personal branding is about having a clear definition of what value you bring, right? Your values, your character, things you stand for. Anytime you interact with just one person, when they walk away from that conversation, what do you want them to walk away with in terms of how they see you, how they view you, and so on? So it's being your true, authentic self, and that person might change. Your values will stay the same, but that person might change and throughout depending on what you're doing, and so on. So I think that's important. Branding to me is not always about being present. It's about making sure that every interaction you have, you are representing the best version of yourself that you want people to walk away with. And then your audience varies. So in my case, one way I started is I used to write a lot. So I used to would just pitch myself. I didn't have a strategy. I was like, I like to create content. So that's my jam. I like to create content. So that came naturally to me. But you won't see me on TikTok. I don't even have a TikTok. And I see a lot of people in my field and others that are forcing themselves to be on TikTok or make Instagram reels. Like I only use Instagram for my podcast. There's very little personal stuff. That's not my jam. It's not my brand. I look unauthentic when I try to do a reel that is not aligned. So I think being mindful that what's trendy is not always the best case for you. You have to find what's best for you. And for me, it was writing a lot of content, articles, publications, podcast, and speaking publicly. That's my jam. I love it. That's where I thrive. That's where I get that little fear and excitement, the perfect combination. That's how it's the right fit. If you're forcing yourself to do things, which is how I felt on Instagram and TikTok, I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like, this is just not me. So I think it's just important to understand who is your audience, where do you feel comfortable? And I don't mean comfortable as in you have to just be comfortable. There's a learning curve for everything. If you see podcast episode 1, OMG, I just recommend you go look at my podcast episode 1 to today. A huge difference.
Yeah.
But I'm equally as comfortable, but my production sucks. And my background, everything about it was just much worse. God bless my friend who was my first guest for sticking with me. But so anyway, so I think it's just finding what's right for you. And I can go deeper into kind of my things and what I've done in this content creation. But I guess the final part I'll mention here is that it's much easier than one can imagine. All it requires is consistency. That's it. Your brand is about consistency. I think consistency is a pillar that we need to take in everything. As long as you're consistent, you'll grow your brand, you'll grow your audience, you'll get in shape, you'll get healthier, you'll progress, you'll make more money, you'll build your businesses, and so on. Consistency. The person that playing the long game wins the game.
Thanks for that. And yeah, consistency is brilliance. And when you mentioned there about not doing stuff you really don't want to do, let's talked about TikTok and stuff like that. And that ties really nicely in with, if you are stepping so far out, it's very hard. You use the word sustainable. Find it when we're talking about fitness, it's very hard to be consistent and sustainable if you just set parameters at the start that are just too far out. So I think really, yeah, just having something that is sustainable that you can get consistent with over time, the compound effect is going to be massive. When you're writing content, if I want to have an outlet, I find just writing a really long-winded LinkedIn post, I just find it so therapeutic and nice, and it just makes me feel so much better. And I know it's helping other people. So do you ever feel like that? Do you get that? Yeah.
Yeah, and your posts are phenomenal. First of all, if anybody who's listened have not been following you on LinkedIn and your posts, they're just phenomenal. I think you really put it all out there, and I can see how it's therapeutic for you. It's definitely therapeutic for me as well when I write some things, because you just putting it, you're just sharing, and I think and that's why it's like the right place for you, because as long as you feel like, you have to feel like, yes, like I want to it has to be therapy. If it's painful, then you probably shouldn't be doing it. And there's a lot of people that are putting things out there to try to go viral or to try to be like controversial. No, just do you. That's all I said. Just do you and stay consistent. I promise you, out of 8 billion, how many people now on the planet? Probably more, 8 billion people, you have an audience. You have an audience. You don't need 8 billion to understand you. That's never going to happen. You have an audience, stick to your audience, stick to what's true to you. And to your point, it does feel good when you are doing the creative, when you're putting things out there, right? There's no questions. It feels good. It feels right.
Definitely to do it, because you mentioned there the long game and stuff like that. Like, sometimes I'm sitting there on a post, and honestly, sometimes it takes me way longer than it should, and we're really busy, and it sometimes probably is a bit illogical and irrational, but I do doing it, and I do genuinely feel passionate about it, so I just do it. But the question is, do you think to produce content consistently and do you think you actually just genuinely just have to give a shit and really care? Because otherwise it's just a bit irrational, like, to do it long term.
Yeah. For me, I've thought about this a lot. And because you think about, okay, where do I want to put my energy? Like,
Hmm.
where do you want to put my energy? And because to be consistent with content, you have to really care. You have to have something to talk about. And that's why you have to also choose your content creation platform. Is it writing? Is it publications? Is it audio stuff? Is it video and audio? So there's different ways is it art? There's different ways to create content. So I think finding your avenue for content is important that feels good to you, where you can sustain it. It has to feed a part of your soul, and it has to add value. And I think that's where it's at, because if you don't enjoy it, it's going to come off. And I think that's another thing people don't understand. When it's forced, when you're doing it because you feel like you have to do it, it's forced. I've been in conversations and I've had a couple of guests that I record a podcast with, and I just either I felt like they were just a little bit shammy, or I just didn't feel myself. I didn't release it because I was like, that is not like, I felt myself. I made in earlier podcasting years, I made the mistake of bringing on just anybody and everybody,
Mm.
and within like my theme or whatever. And now I'm a little bit more selective and so on, because I want to enjoy a conversation. Because for me, podcasting is therapeutic as the writing is for you. For me to be able to connect, I always say it makes me more humble. It definitely teaches me, tells me how much I don't know still. And it's the most phenomenal thing I've done is the podcasting. It's been the biggest educational platform for myself selfishly. And I'm sure for hopefully for many others. So you have to enjoy it. Otherwise it
Mm.
becomes
Yeah.
unauthentic, and people feel it.
Yeah, it does. I tell you what, it's so hard at first, isn't it? Like when you invite people on, they're like, "Oh yeah, what about your previous shows?" You're like, "I've got one." It's really
Yeah.
hard to get. Once you got it going, it's a lot easier, and you can be selective, can't you? But at first, I feel you on that. You just have to get it going. It's harder, but it's like it's snowball effect, isn't it? Cool, Elena. Yeah, thanks for that. So on the obviously you've got a lot of recruitment experience. One question I always want to ask anyone who is a recruitment professional who's got talent acquisition management experiences. The market is tough at the minute for a lot of people. What kind of tips and hints and advice have you got for people to stand out in a, you probably get it as well on LinkedIn, you get hit up so much with everyone just crying out for everything. And I've seen a bit of, I don't know if you've seen it, I've noticed on the candidate side, I've seen a bit of desperation from some people, and they're getting annoyed quickly. And yeah, any advice for people that are out there struggling at the minute on the market?
Might not be a popular answer, but this is another topic I think a lot about, because I've had people close to me who've gone through job search. I myself have been there, and I talk to a lot of candidates, obviously, and people do reach out to me. And I do a lot of volunteer work where I help people with different career transitions. And what I have come to, the unpopular piece is that, unfortunately, there are a lot of things that are out of control, like just the whole system of recruiting. And there are a lot of broken things in the system itself that are unfortunately not just up to one entity or another. It's a combination of many different stakeholders that I think, including the individual applicant, and that's unfortunate. I have seen candidates that are excellent candidates that have been denied jobs that they're perfect for through the ATS, and then a recruiter will talk to them, or a hiring manager, or somebody gets recommended, and they get hired because they're the best person for the job, actually. But the process we have in place are just ineffective in many cases, which is why I think having the right recruiter, a person who cares, a person who knows how to recognize potential and talent, and who can vouch for you, is essential. But anyway, that's so I don't have an answer in terms of, I don't really even have a solution, to be honest. What I do know for a fact, though, is that there are a lot of things that you can control. And as counterproductive as it may seem to some people, because it's, I need to apply and I need to, yes, but also there's a lot of things that we don't do as applicants that can help us significantly. Number one, as an applicant, no matter what, maintaining a good relationship with every single person you come across, whether it's a recruiter and so on. I think being kind and being understanding, and understanding that you don't know what you don't know, and that recruiters especially sometimes just the middleman, and unfortunately we do our best, but sometimes things are out of our control. So I think being a little bit more reasonable and staying in touch will go a long way, because that recruiter can think of you for another position. Being responsive, being respectful. I think candidates expect certain things, but they don't give that respect back. And I think we have to be real about that. I think we can all do each other a favor as a society if we stop applying for jobs that we absolutely do not qualify for, right? A lot of people are, you look on LinkedIn and there'll be like 1,000 people for a particular role, and it's, or they have like super important clearance that they need or super important certification. You're trying to tell me thousands of those people have it? Most likely not. That is a big turnoff for the rest of the people that are applying. So I think if we just, but that's where you go into desperation. You apply for anything, you just shoot your shot. And then, so collectively, I think we're hurting the whole process as applicants. So that's another thing. And a final couple of things I'll mention here is, at that time when you're still looking for that job and that opportunity, there are a lot of things you can do. One, again, going back to the physical aspect, take care of those three things. Check your mindset, check your physical. All of that will help release all the good hormones to keep you going in a job search. The other part of it is continue to learn, continue to be curious, continue to build relationships. And most people are really bad at building relationships, because we are always looking to get something out of a relationship. And sometimes it's about giving. And yes, I get it that you need a job and you need to find work and so on, but you're not going to be any worse off if you add value, even for free, or give your time, or help another job seeker, or volunteer your time somewhere. That will actually create the energy and a positive force around you to keep going and hopefully attract opportunities to you. So I think being more, how to say it, just giving back and paying forward will go a long way in a job search. I'm a huge believer in whatever you put out there will come back to you tenfold, as long as you're genuine about it. And so anyway, again, there's a 20 different tips I can give about being effective in a job search. But I think if you don't do these things, you're just sabotaging yourself, because people will feel it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lena. Definitely. And there's loads to unpack there. And the bit about relationships and just being nice, like the job market is just ridiculously cyclical. It's heavily, I did a post about it, that it's heavily pegged to the health of the economy. Recruitment is, if you look at big agencies, even publicly traded ones, their stock price just goes up and down depending on what the economy is doing. And it's always going to be a time when the candidates are in control and it's more candidate led, and vice versa when it's more client led, which it is now. So it's not only is it nice to be nice, it actually really does pay. That thing about, you mentioned there about people always just want something straight away. And I think it's like, if people just believed in a system and a process, they would do it. Like you said, you're not going to get something straight away, but if you're relationship focused, it definitely comes back around. And I know firsthand from doing my job as a recruiter, if you actually just switch off from the fee or the end result and just do things right, everything, it's a nicer way to work. Everything falls into place. So I think, would you say it's more just about just actually believing in a process? Like if me and you map something out for everyone listening and we went, right, if you do this, you get back to people, you do this, in 60 days time, you will have a job. If people just believe that it was definitely going to happen, they probably would follow the process. It's probably about a belief system. And I don't know, do you think it's more about just focusing on the process as opposed to just trying to think, got to get it?
Yeah, I think we create our own resistance and sabotage ourselves if we get frustrated, because when you're in that mode, just think about it, right? Like when you're in a mode of not thinking clearly or very focused or just frustrated, or your confidence is shut, you might be thinking tunnel vision. You might be looking at tunnel vision. You might be missing out on opportunities around you because you're so focused on the problem that you're not expanding your mindset to say, okay, what haven't I tried? And I think some tangible, practical advice here is Number one, most candidates, most people, for better or for worse, do not know how to present themselves, do not know how to tell their story. They don't, especially in a world of AI where you might be shifting careers, where you might be looking for a career change because your job is no longer relevant and so on. How do you tell a story in a way that all of those years of experience that you've done can be transitioned towards this new area? How do you tell that story? How do you help the person you're speaking to see that you might be the best person for the job? That is something you can control. You have to remember you're talking to another human being who may or may not be able to recognize your potential. They're not a computer. They don't have all the answers. And it's a two-way street. It's a two-way conversation. And I think we fall into the trap as candidates sometimes is to look at it like I need to give them this, and then we go into robotic. No, just tell your story. Practice that. Practice telling your story. Also recognizing when you need to shift, when you need to, maybe that job, that industry is done for you, right? Understanding that. And also looking at what works and what doesn't work. If you've been applying for a month to 2 months relentlessly, you're not getting any hits, something is off. Something is wrong. That means maybe it's your resume, maybe it's your approach, maybe it's your emails, maybe it's your marketing materials. Could be a number. Audit those things, right? If it's not working, don't do it. Putting metrics, that's another thing. People just blindly, I'll have people that I would talk to in my career coaching world, and I'd be like, what will you apply to? I don't know. So people are applying, they don't know where they're applying for. That tells me you don't have a strategy. You're just blindly clicking apply across board without actually understanding, going in and out. And yes, it's more time consuming, but quality applications, quality quality reach outs to recruiters, to hiring managers, to connections on LinkedIn are important.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, 100%. The phrase I've used is just slow down to speed up. Like it's
Yeah.
just, and it does. I think you use the word. It feels counterintuitive, but it really isn't. And yeah, I like what you said about audit yourself. Like it's so easy to play that blame game, have that kind of victim mindset. It might make you feel a little bit better temporarily, but the problem with playing that blame game is you're just never going to get anywhere. And by the way, I like when you said it might not be very popular. I like that you're being like that because you can be all and tell everyone what they want to hear, but it won't help anyone. So you've got to sit back and go, this isn't working. How can I do it? I think the personalization bit, okay, slowing down to speed up, whatever it is, I think that's absolutely massive. You've given us loads there, Elena. Anything else you see in there? How do you like to be? I know you're managing the team and stuff, but how do you or the team? Is there any additional ways you like to be approached around outside the traditional methods? Or
Yeah, I think just generally speaking, I think myself and I think it's just a more effective strategy when you reach out to somebody, don't give me homework. Right? Don't give me homework where, like, I've literally had somebody this morning email me on LinkedIn and they're saying, my contract's coming to an end and I'm looking for a new job. I hope you can help me in my, etc. And it's a person I've actually just hopped on a call, I gave him the best advice that I could. So it's already chatted. I already gave you the best of my advice and you coming back to me when, do you know what I mean? It just gets frustrating because it's, don't give me homework. Let's say you look at my profile and say, Elena, one, don't send me long-winded paragraphs or to anybody. But let's say there's somebody that's in our common connections that you want to be introduced to because they have a role and here's how you qualify for that role. I'd be much more open to introducing. I believe in that. I do this for just about everybody that asks, as long as it makes sense. I will put my reputation, I will connect you, I will do my best to connect because that's what LinkedIn is for. And people who are just people there for different reasons, I am happy to introduce anybody in my network if it makes sense for you. But if you're just like, if you don't have a reason, you just want to connect, no, you need to have again, going back to a strategy. You say, Elena, I see you have Thomas in your network and so on. I would love to talk to him because he's hiring for X role. I really fit in. I know we haven't met, but I would love it if you can just make a casual introduction, something like that. Cool. I'd love to do that. But don't give me homework to figure out where you fit in. I just, it's not because I don't want to help. I do 3 different jobs in my life, basically. You're like, and so does and a lot of other people do as well. And I have a family and everybody. So it's like people are busy. And so make it easy for others to help you by doing your homework and asking, being more strategic in your ask.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And you use the word there, concise in your language. That's a massive thing. If you're dealing with anyone at management level, like you said, any level, you've got to be to the point, or people to switch off. Also, as well, Elena, just like you mentioned there about someone reaching out and they want you to do this, that, and the other. I sometimes think people get this misconception of what a recruiter does, especially on the agency side. And you can do it and you're internally or agency side, you're really busy. And I'm either hunting for new clients or we're trying to work on really hard to fill roles. And when people are paying fees, we're generally looking for really hard to fill, really hard to find people. And I think sometimes people just think you're there just to endlessly serve them. And it is a bit controversial saying it, because you do want to play that long game. You do want to help people out. But the reality is you just can't help. There's 8, 10, 12 hours, 13 hours in a day if you're pushing really hard. There is only just so much time in a day. So yeah, hyper personalized, make it easy, concise. Were they the main points? Is there any other little
Yeah.
bit? Yeah.
I just think I talk to more people, I think, than an average person. I think both you and I do because of the nature of our jobs. And I can tell you from the beginning, I need a couple of minutes or just to see a person's approach. And this is not to judge based on first impressions. I don't, but there are certain things that I've been in that I'm just in tune in these days where I already know this person is going to have a very hard time trying to achieve what they're trying to achieve because of the actions they're taking and because of the character traits they're showing and how they interact with other people. So it's if you have a mentality where it's all about you and it's a one-way street and it's about what I can gain from this, I promise you this doesn't go very far in career or definitely not business in any relationships. It just doesn't work. Long term, it does not work. And I see a lot of candidates, whether use and abuse and a recruiter basically, until they don't need that. No, you need to maintain that relationships in general, because it's not about, oh, they don't have anything to offer and you move on. No, you still need to send a follow-up, a thank you, a basic thank you. That recruiter will remember you. That is how you stay on top of their mind, because they have had a good interaction. If you just disappear and ghost them, that's fine. And I promise you, if they had a bad experience with you, they will also remember. And that makes it very difficult because it speaks a lot to your character. And I think we've gone so far off the rails with this, is we just forgot how to know how to just communicate with one another in a respectful way. It's you, because you represent yourself. So if you're acting a certain way, or if you're all X, Y, and Z, it's not a good look and it doesn't work. And to me, like when certain things come up, or mindsets, or giving me homework, or not coming prepared, or expecting, or having this victim mentality, I promise you, you're not going to make it far. It's just the world doesn't work like that. Whatever God, universe you believe in, it just doesn't work. You gotta take action. You gotta take accountability. You have to be kind. You have to continuously check in with yourself. Treat other people like you want to be treated. The basic things, and a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah. Listen, the way you're talking there is absolutely right. And I really like it because, Elena, when I write these posts sometimes, I send them internally in our agency and I'm like, can I say that, or is that going to piss everyone off? But you're saying it as well. I just think, and again, this will annoy some people, but we have just got too nicey and too soft and short term. It's great. It makes everyone feel really lovely, but it doesn't help people move forward. It doesn't help people's career progression. And you've got to be cruel to be kind. And yeah, I think, yeah, I'm liking what you're saying there. You've just got to, you've got to toughen up. You've got, or it just won't get you there. You use the word tunnel vision, Elena. Do you think that ties really nicely in with the fitness, the wellness, the self-awareness, the mindfulness? Do you meditate, by the way, at all? Do you do any meditation?
I do hot yoga. So I've recently got used to do hot yoga. That's probably I meditate. I go back and forth. It's hard for me. So hot yoga is where because it's forced meditation in a way. It's like everything is away. Like you have 90 minutes to just be there and do or die. You're there. So I don't I sometimes, but not, I try, but it's an on off for me. I don't know what it is, but there's a lot of benefit for it for sure. I'm just not as regular with it.
There is. The reason I mention it is because when you mention tunnel vision, from stuff I've gone through phases. At one point, I was really good. Used to do it all the time. I've fallen back off again now, and it is hard. I think the time when you need it the most is the time it's hardest to do, because when you are most stressed and you can't switch off, that is when you really need it. And I tend to find people that badmouth meditation are the ones that I think need it the most. But yeah, I think it's the reason I mentioned, because it's meant to give you that ability to look down on your life with a helicopter view and create self-awareness. And like I said, the exact opposite of tunnel vision. So I think a lot of the things you describe it about stepping back, thinking of it from the other person's point of view, not just yours, taking a longer term approach with a helicopter. I think that wellness and meditation piece essentially would significantly enhance your chances of being able to do everything you've just said. So yeah, that's why I mentioned it. But yeah, meditate. Don't give Elena homework either. Don't give it. That's not going to go down well.
At least if you're gonna give me homework, make sure you've done your homework. And I'll do that, but don't give me homework and you're just sitting back expecting stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So resumes, interview, we can tie this in with communication, but basically any kind of hints or tips for the listeners on how to be in interviews, do's or don'ts, what do you like, what don't you like? Any thoughts there?
Uh, well, something I've already mentioned, prepare to tell your story. Understand where you fit in. Don't just give me for me, it's I always tell people, I don't want to talk about your resume. Tell me about you. Tell me as if this is not an interview. Let's just have a chat. And I throw in I don't do typical interview questions. I throw in a lot of behavioral stuff and we just have a chat. So just to see how a person, do they know what they even want, right? Do they even know how to have a conversation type thing? So I think understanding how to sell yourself, how to tell that story, especially if you somebody who have been in a particular job for many years and you haven't done job search in a while, that can be hard to do. So I think practice makes better. Record yourself on your phone, have somebody else record you, talk to yourself in the mirror, as silly as that sounds. I think that helps. Come prepared. Make sure there's a proper background. Make sure you dress for the interview according to the industry. Make sure you're not on your phone. I still had people who are in their cars or somewhere in their phone and they're just like looking down at you. And I'm okay with that because life happens, but then let me know and say, listen, let me know, hey, Elena, I'm so sorry. I didn't get to home on time. That happened to me before. I got stuck in a car and I'm like, I'm just going to take this phone call from the car. So just let me know ahead of time. Listen, I don't mean to be I wanted to get home. I just got stuck dropping my kids off or whatever it may be. I think just let people know. Understand a little bit about the company at least. I still have a lot of more younger people, honestly, come completely unprepared. They don't know much about the industry. They don't know much about the job. They didn't read the important pieces of the job description to understand that they need the specific qualification that they completely missing, yet they confirm. So certain things, these things I think are important. Yeah.
Definitely as well. What I like as well is like you said, you talk in the mirror and it sounds silly and this, that, and the other. Like everyone does these things, but I don't know if anyone really talks about them. Doing this podcast today, I still get nervous whenever I do a LinkedIn Live. Absolutely petrified, like really find it hard talking in front of the mirror to practice things. Like we all do these things. I think sometimes we need to talk about them because people might think, "Oh, is that just me being a bit weird?" But it's not. Like we all do it, don't we?
I think, yeah, absolutely. I think we forget that we're all human. And again, I credit this to the podcast. Like when you talk to people, as many people as you and I both talk to, you start to realize the whole impression of nobody knows what they're doing. It's true. We don't. Everybody's trying to figure that out. Some people are better at doing it and acting like they know what they're doing or just used to being uncomfortable and just, putting on a show anyway type thing. So I think just, yeah, being mindful that you're not alone in whatever you're thinking.
Definitely. Another thing, Elena, that I take from what you just said is like people coming on a video call can be really annoying, but if it's handled correctly, it's cool. Other things people do can be frustrating, but if it's handled correctly, and it basically, I can think of loads of examples, and like I've read this before, that as humans, we are not logical. We run on emotion. Like if someone you really like does something bang out of order, but you really like them, you're more inclined to give them a pass, or you will give them a pass because you really like. And it says to me, it's all about like relationships and again playing long term and how you handle different situations. I think it's just having that awareness of how to, if you have that awareness, I'm not advocating like doing anything and getting away with everything, but I certainly
Mhm.
think it just helps you in life and it helps you move forward and it helps you just to deal with people and it keeps you happy and it keeps other people happier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it brings up an interesting point. I think one of the reasons that people get super awkward in interviews a lot of times, again, because they're thinking it's a one-way road. So they're like, what do I need to do to sell myself to this person that I'm talking to versus just looking at it as a two-way street and not having the right answer sometimes and just talking to them like a human being, like just like a colleague to colleague. And I think that's a big mistake people make because it's detrimental to their career because if you're not being authentic and if you're not as curious about the other person, then you can make it into a conversation. If you ever hit a recruiter, if you're ever on a call with a recruiter who is a very like this is all about me and my questions, probably not the right person for you, not the right company, not the right partnership in general. Let's just start with the basics. So I think if you just answer questions, and again, goes back to knowing yourself, knowing what you bring to the table. If you know that you can easily flow with the conversation, you know exactly what to say, when to say it, what they need to hear, what you want to add on your own stuff. It takes practice. I always say there's a psychology piece to recruitment. And to your point, understanding who that person is and being able to connect with them person to person, because if you're able to do that, you already have that rapport, right? And if you're completely like two different people and just not meshing, especially if that's a hiring manager you're talking to, that's a person you might be working for. Do you really want to do that? That's going to be a very miserable existence for you.
Yeah, definitely. And on that point, like if someone's forcing it, it's if someone rings you up from a call center and you can hear they're ringing from a script. You just put the phone down. It's the equivalent of that. It needs to be natural. And also, I think it's surprising how you said you don't need to always talk as much. Probably everyone feels like they've got to talk, and yeah, you've got to get your point across and stuff like that. But it's surprising how if you just, I've had calls in the past. I'm sure you're the same. I've had client that calls in the past, and I've hardly said anything. They've maybe come for a recommendation, so you've got a bit of a step up. But it's surprising if you just, you perhaps don't need to try as hard as you think. Sometimes it's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah. What are some things for you that are like deal breakers or something that like just drives you crazy when, like when you talk to candidates?
I think some of the things, if they ask about money too quickly, that can really frustrate me. If people are not doing what they said they were going to do, or like you said, ghosting people in 2021 and 2022, when it was ridiculously candidate led, we as an agency were getting ghosted by candidates all the time, and this, that, and the other. We were getting hold of them, but we were getting ghosted a lot as well. And then, like you say, they come back now. Can you help me? So probably just a lot of the stuff that we've been saying, which is just not being just a nice human being, not doing what they said.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we just forget that unless you've done a job as a recruiter, you don't know what that's, and give the person benefit of a doubt that you don't know what it's like. And you won't fail if you are just kind to somebody or respectful or mindful and so on. And we cannot control how other people act, but you can control how you act. And your name and your reputation will take you far or not so far. It's totally up to you. And I think this whole idea of being nice sounds, people might be listening, oh, it's just, do I really, etc. Like nice, is that all? Is that, I promise you, that's probably the best advice I can give you. Just be a decent human being. That will go a long way for you, especially long term. But again, I just believe in that whatever energy you put out there will come back to you. If it's genuine, right? If it's fake, people see it as well. So like I've had candidates who like they do so much homework. Like I appreciate when people do homework about me, but they'll watch a couple of my podcasts and they're like buttering me up, and I'm like, that's a turn off as well. Don't do that. Like, okay, compliment to an extent, but that's not what I'm here for. Thank you, I appreciate it. You know what I mean? But you can mention that you've seen my podcast. Cool. That's not going to be there's still other things that are also going to go into. So also there's a element of being nice and too nice as well,
Elena, do you think like a lot of these things, like we're talking about the communication side, and we're talking about a lot of things like that, like a little bit kind of, people call them soft skills, but that never does them justice, but like unquantifiable. Do you think it's that they are teachable, or do you think to a certain extent I don't know, do you think people can only go so far? Because like this, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, that's another topic I think about quite often in my work because I teach a lot of these kind of topics. There are certain basics that I think only life can teach. Either like character, values, treating others kindly. But I also understand that if people don't do that, there's a lot of underlying reasons why they don't do that, and that's not my job to teach that or fix that. I think all I can do is just maybe bring awareness to certain things. So I can't necessarily teach that. I can teach communication. I can teach asking the right questions. These sort of things I think can be taught. Like certain leadership traits can be taught, right? Empathy. I think there are ways to be more empathetic. There are ways to be more resilient. There are ways to build your confidence, certain things. But if you don't have the base, which is like your character and your values and respect to yourself and then to others, because I think that whenever you are just nasty or disrespectful to other people, that says so much about you. And to me, if you act like that, if people act like that, it's almost like when they say you just don't even get mad anymore, you just feel bad for people. You're like, you are in you must be in such a dark place to be this way, and I feel so bad for you, and I hope you find your way out. But so that always, that, but also we don't know what we don't know. And people come from lifetime of traumas. And sometimes you do just get person on their worst day. Right. You do sometimes just get somebody that, I mean, I talk about benefit of a doubt. Sometimes you do just get somebody on their worst day, etc. So it's just, we've all been there. I'm not a perfect human being. Nobody is. But so some of it, yes, maybe. Some of it, I think, is just more comes from childhood, upbringing, environment.
Yeah, you do. And you're right. I think generally, if someone is not nice, generally speaking, I'd say it probably means they're not that happy in themselves. So yeah, you're right. It's them that it's affecting the most. I promised you an hour. Definitely going to go over it. Never mind. But tell us about your podcast. Tell us about how it can help the listeners and things like that.
Yeah, so the podcast is called The Shift with Elena Agar. It's all about performance, well-being, talent. So it's for anybody who's looking to just get comfortable being comfortable. It's about continuous growth, a lot of fitness stuff, a lot of well-being stuff, a lot of career stuff. So really just anything that elevates our personal growth, performance in a workplace and in our lives in general.
Okay, cool. YouTube channel and stuff, really good. I was looking at it and I was looking at the thing that you send over and stuff like that because we're doing a show next week, aren't we? But yeah, it's good. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. And Elena, do you read books or are you more of a podcast? You do read books. I can see them in the background. I know we're only doing audio, but I can see books. But podcast or book that's had the most positive effect on your career so far?
Yep. Podcasts are so many. I'll start with the book. It's easier. The 5 Agreements. I forget the author's name, but The 5 Agreements is a great book. I really also enjoy books from Tim Ferriss. He's a good one about experimenting and different things. I love podcasts of Andrew Huberman. I love podcasts from The Diary of CEO. Anybody that kind of invites different people, different perspectives. So I probably watch too many podcasts, honestly, but I try to allocate them between like recruitment podcasts, talent development podcasts, and just life business podcasts. But yeah, lots of books. I don't even know off the top of my head, but anything with Tim Ferriss, Andrew Huberman, yeah, just anything around. Peter Attia is another good one about well-being.
Yeah.
Peter Attia is a good one. There's so many.
The Diary of a CEO is banging. That is
banging.
So good. Did you see the one where that guy was predicting when people were going to die, but then he realized he was doing the wrong thing and now he helps people live longer? Have you heard that one? Forgotten his name. He talks about cold water swimming a lot. He talks about not eating carbs. I'll send you it if you haven't.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe that doesn't come to mind. Maybe I didn't see that one.
I'm going to send you your love, but yeah, I think he's like, I don't know where he is in the US. Is he quite big in the US, Stephen Bartlett? He's over there now, isn't he? Quite.
Yeah. The host, Stephen Bartlett.
Yeah, because he's massive in the UK. Cool, yeah. For everyone listening, definitely check out the Diary of a CEO. All right, Lena. Anything else? Have we missed anything? I know I think we've done all right. Anything else we need to?
I think we've done all right. I think we can do part 2 sometime. But I also want to save some of these conversations towards our conversation next week. So when you're coming on my podcast,
listen, I'm really nervous about it.
Don't be.
I feel way more comfortable being the host.
I bet you do. Time to change the tables for you.
Yeah, I'm going to be there like sweating with my tissues and stuff. But yeah, cool. Elena, thank you for that. I know you've got a action-packed Friday afternoon, Friday daytime ahead of you. Enjoy your Friday, and I'll see you next week when we do our recording.
Thank you.